Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for today, Thursday, March 28th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured and how pretty much most videos will be structured for MLB DFS Core Picks throughout the season. Typically, on the days where we do have picks from the previous day, we'll go over a recap of the results of those core picks as well. But for today, we'll be going over kind of the weather and play for the games on the main slate. It's a 10-game main slate initially. It's knocked down to 9 games already because we do have the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies already getting postponed at this point in time due to weather. It's something that's going to be a major part early on in the season, is making sure that these games are going off due to weather, whether it's rain, cold weather, snow, a lot of different factors that can happen, especially, in these states up north during this point in the season. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my core picks for the day. We're going to go over one pitcher, and then it'll be 4 hitters. So typically, it'll be at least one outfielder, at least one infielder. Some days you'll have a little bit more of one than the other. There will be 4 hitters just in general. The way that I kind of go about that process typically is I look at past history in terms of hitter versus pitcher matchups and recent history. So at this point in time, early in the season, we don't have too much recent history. We got a little bit of stuff from spring training. I'll talk about that, as well as the past history versus the respective opposing pitcher. So that is kind of the way that I go about that process. I know some people do it a little bit differently, but just explain that for you guys if you haven't joined me before in the past. Then after that, we'll get moved over to my MLB DFS cheat sheet. That will be posted up daily, at least Monday through Friday, over on the Sports Affiliation website. So definitely be sure to check that out, support them over there. And then with that being said, we'll talk about my top teams to stack for the day. Obviously, the first day it's going to be a little bit interesting because, each team's best pitcher is essentially pitching on day one, opening day of the season. So going to be an interesting slate overall. A lot of good pitchers thrown out there today. So if you're playing multiple lineups, be sure to mix and match at that pitcher position. And then obviously you're going to want to get pretty creative with some of those teams to stack just in general today as well. But with all that being said, we'll take a look at RotoWire, talking about the kind of weather for today overall. So the first game we'll be looking at is going to be Los Angeles Angels and the Baltimore Orioles. There is a 43% chance of rain. I believe that's the only game that has a relative chance of rain on the main slate for today. And then we have the Boston Red Sox and the Seattle Mariners with a 71% chance of rain tonight. So that will be on the later slate if you do ultimately end up playing that. So for the most part, pretty easy day to start off the year. Obviously, we got that Phillies game that got postponed, and then the Milwaukee Brewers and New York Mets game got postponed as well. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks for the day. So I will mention this too. A lot of the other sports I do DraftKings and FanDuel. For MLB particularly, I just play on FanDuel. There is only one pitcher that you need to get right essentially on FanDuel, so it makes it a little bit easier in that regard. Personally, for me, I feel if you're going to play on DraftKings, you're playing with 2 pitchers, so you need both those pitchers to do reasonably well to have a chance. If one of those pitchers fails, then your lineup's essentially dead more times than not. So in that situation, you need to play a little bit more max entry, and that is something I typically don't play a lot of. So I play a lot of single entry, I play a lot of 3 maxes, I play a little bit of 20 max here and there, but I feel like on DraftKings, to maximize your earning potential, you need to play 50 max, 150 max, and kind of really get exposure to multiple different pitchers, mixing and matching them over there, as well as mixing and matching a lot of team stacks. So it's a little bit different game over there. Obviously, the pricing and the point scoring is a little bit different as well. So particularly for me, I just focus on the FanDuel side. So we're going to start off at the pitcher position. A lot of great guys out there today. Like I did mention, there is a lot of aces pitching today. So obviously opening day starters. Going to be a lot of good pitching there overall. For the core pick today, I picked Cole Reagans here, $8,800. So he was one of the highest pitchers down the stretch last season. He incorporated a slider into his repertoire once he moved over to the Kansas City Royals, and the success was very, very great over there. Had a couple starts late in the year where he walked too many guys and didn't ultimately pan out in those starts. But other than that, he was excellent, and he goes against the Minnesota Twins today. Should be a pretty favorable matchup just in general. Twins lineup's not going to scare too many people. There are strikeouts to be had there. There are a couple contact hitters in there too, especially like Edward Julian, a guy that is kind of an on-base specialist. But overall, should be a favorable matchup for Cole Reagans. He has no history versus the Minnesota Twins in the past, so that is something to write home about. There is a chance that it doesn't go well for him, but sometimes when you don't have a history versus the opposing team, that does favor the pitcher typically. So he's a guy, when we're looking at spring now, not the greatest spring. He had a 6.75 ERA. Only had 6 walks, though, so that was kind of a good sign for him overall. He was kind of mixing and matching with some of his pitches in the spring. I don't write too home about spring training pitcher results, just because a lot of these guys, they're going out there, they're throwing a certain pitch, they're working on little things, so the results don't matter quite as much in that regard. But I do like the upside that Cole Reagans does offer us today. He is kind of my favorite low-end price pitcher just in general at $8,800. Saves us a little bit of money there. In my cheat sheet, I did mention, Pablo Lopez on the opposite side of the game, who did struggle quite a bit in spring. He gave up 6 home runs. And then Corbin Burns, who is a little bit in that weather spot today as well. But there is a lot of guys that do have some pretty strong upside. You could look at guys like Tariq Skubal, Jesus Luzardo. There is tons and tons of guys to get some exposure to today overall. Then we're going to move down to our hitters for today. So I'm going to start off at Alex Bregman, $3,400 at the third base position. Goes against the New York Yankees today. It's Nestor Cortez on the mound. Alex Bregman, 3 for 8 with 1 home run versus him in his career. Alex Bregman's coming off a really strong spring training where he hit .383 with 2 home runs, and that was over 51 at-bats. He had 16 hits there, so a really strong spring for him. Some good history versus Nestor Cortez in the past. So he is a guy that I do like quite a bit today, and he actually did come up as my MLB prop of the day, which I did post over on Twitter, over on X, which was over 0.5 total bases for Alex Bregman. You can find that on BetUS at +125. So if you guys are out there, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, he's a guy to take advantage of today overall. That looks like a pretty good play. And then at shortstop, we're going to get to Elly De La Cruz, also $3,400 going against the Washington Nationals. It's Josiah Gray on the mound. He is 1 for 3 with 1 home run in his career versus Josiah Gray, so some pretty short, limited sample size there. And then Elly De La Cruz, kind of mixed results this spring. He hit .280 with 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases. These strikeouts were still up, so that's kind of the one concern there. I'm not as concerned today versus Josiah Gray in terms of the strikeouts. Yes, Gray can strike some guys out, but the upside with Elly De La Cruz at $3,400 on opening day is a pretty reasonable price tag for him. If you played MLB DFS last year, we saw a lot of slates where he was $3,900, $4,000, just based on the upside that he can have on any given slate, where he can give us some power with home runs, or he's a guy that can steal multiple bases on any given slate. So a lot of upside to be had there, going against one of the weaker pitchers that is pitching today overall. Then we're going to get down to 2 outfielders. They're going to be 2 interesting names, honestly. So we have Giancarlo Stanton here at $2,900. Going against the Houston Astros, it's Framber Valdez, the lefty, on the mound for them today. And Giancarlo Stanton in his career is 4 for 8 with 1 home run versus Framber Valdez. So there is some pretty good history there in the past. He hit .317 with 4 home runs this spring. So a very good spring training for Giancarlo Stanton. Didn't strike out a ton in his spring training in bats either. So maybe, just maybe, a good start to the year for Giancarlo Stanton, who's, kind of struggled in recent seasons, but the power is always there. $2,900, a reasonable price tag for him overall. If you can get a home run out of him for $2,900, that is going to be a guy that does really help your lineup overall. And, at the same time, Framber Valdez, good pitcher, but he's not one of these overwhelming, one of these great stuff guys that is pitching on today's slate overall. He is a guy that does allow some contact, typically relies on the ground ball, but if you can get the ball in the air against him, could be pretty favorable overall. And then last but not least, we move down to Mike Yastrzemski for the San Francisco Giants. He is $2,800. Really good history in the past versus Yu Darvish. So 8 for 21 with 3 home runs in his career versus Yu Darvish. That's kind of what we're relying on most for him today with that cheap price tag of $2,800. The spring was not as kind to Mike Yastrzemski. So he's the one guy that doesn't have quite as good recent history when we think about it from the spring training perspective. He only had .214 this spring. He didn't have a single home run. So struggling maybe a little bit there, but we're going to bank on the past history versus Yu Darvish, which is really good overall. So if he's a guy that you don't want to play for that reason, I definitely understand it. But at a cheap price tag of $2,800, I'm willing to take the upswing and the chance based on his past history versus Yu Darvish just in general. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 guys that I do currently have listed here, you have $13,700 remaining, just over $3,400 per player. So a good amount of money left over, whether you're building out a little bit more balanced build with these $3,400 guys, whether you want to pay up for like a Freddie Freeman at first base. Mookie Betts obviously qualifies at a lot of different positions. Dodgers is a team that we're going to like stacking today as well. Obviously, we talked a little bit about these Houston Astros, so you can get to some more Yordan Alvarez, some Shohei Ohtani in the outfield. A lot of different ways that we can approach today's slate overall. And then with that being said, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and the top teams to stack for today overall. So we're going to start off with those Houston Astros. They're going against Nestor Cortez of the New York Yankees. So a lot of these Astros hitters have hit him pretty well in the past, whether it is Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, I believe Jose Altuve as well. So at least 4 different guys that have hit him pretty well. Obviously, on FanDuel, you can only play 4 hitters from the same team. So potentially looking at those 4 guys against Nestor Cortes today if you're going with that Astro stack. But obviously, they have a lot of skilled hitters in their lineup as well. And then we have the Dodgers going against Miles Mikolas. Nothing against Mikolas, but he is one of the lower tier pitchers on today's slate overall. Dodgers have one of the better lineups in all of baseball, so definitely do like them. Some of their hitters have put him pretty well in the past. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, 2 that really stand out. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani hasn't faced him too much in the past, but he is a guy on the high end as well. And then we have the Cincinnati Reds going against Josiah Gray. Once again, not one of the top tier pitchers on today overall. A guy that can give up some home runs. I do not remember if that game is in Washington or Cincinnati, but if it's in Cincinnati, there's obviously some extra home run potential there. Do like Ellie De La Cruz, who was in our lineup for today overall. Not a long list of history there for these Reds players, but definitely do like the upside overall. And then last but not least, we have the Orioles going against Patrick Sandoval. Nothing against Sandoval once again, but he is one of the lower tier pitchers pitching on opening day. The Orioles have hit him pretty well in the past. 2 of the guys that really stand out for them are going to be Anthony Santander and Raymond Urias in terms of what they've done versus Patrick Sandoval in their career. And Raymond Urias is actually eligible at third base, second base, and first base, and probably expected to start at third base for them today, coming off a really, really strong spring training. Did see them send Jackson Holliday down because of that at the same time as well. So he's a guy at $2,500. Looks like a pretty good cheap value play overall. But with that being said, these are the core picks that I do have for today, as well as the top teams to stack and the little weather report. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. And then with that being said, I'll be trying to post all these starting lineups down in the comments below as they do come out throughout the day, so definitely be on the lookout for that. If there's any changes to my core throughout the day, I will leave those updates down there as well. I really don't expect any changes at this point in the day, especially with opening day. The guys that we kind of have out here are guys that we would all expect to start, but if anything does change with that, we'll leave that updated core prior to lock. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we got MLB DFS kicking off Monday through Friday in terms of the core pick videos. Typically had NBA DFS going Monday through Friday in terms of the core pick videos as well. Today, there's only 2 games for NBA DFS, so I will not be doing a video for that. I did post my NBA DFS player pools for free up on Patreon, so definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're into as well. And then I believe tomorrow will be my last day of NBA DFS core picks. I'm not going to do it for the last 2 weeks since we're switching over to baseball, as well as some UFL DFS, which that video will be coming out either later today or tomorrow, so definitely be on the lookout for that as well. And then with that being said, if you are interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you're a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, when you sign up, you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% match up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that process as well. Once again, I did post up my MLB prop of the day on Twitter, on X, at Coach Craig Sport over there. For today, that is going to be Alex Bregman over 1.5 total bases. Obviously, like I said, he has some pretty good history versus Nestor Cortes, and the odds coming in for that one are plus 125 on BetUS. So feel free to take advantage of that prop of the day. I will be trying to get that MLB prop of the day out at least Monday through Friday. Might mix and match a couple in here on weekends as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS today.